Welcome to Study Session 4, Project Cycle. Introduction. Effectiveness of a project implementation is a function of an understanding of the activities and critical success factors at various stages of the project. Any project will typically pass through different stages as in any life cycle. This chapter considers the following: meaning of project cycle, BURM's project cycle, other version of project cycle. Meaning of project cycle. A cycle is a series of events that is repeated as many times as the action or phenomenon which embodies those events take place. The repetition of the series of events take place in the same order whenever the action takes place. When applied to a project cycle involves series of actions that several separable stages of activities which constitute a definite sequence that some authors have called a project cycle. There is a need to analyze clearly the various stages of activities involved in any project and the decision to be taken at each stage. When such useful process is followed, it will help investors to avoid embarrassing wrong projects and consequently reduce business failures. The World Bank and several other authors have recommended specific stages under which any project should be analyzed. BURM's project cycle. The first basic model of the project cycle is that of BURM, 1970, who recognizes four main stages: 1. Identification, 2. Preparation, 3. Appraisal and selection, 4. Implementation. 1. Identification. This stage deals with the selection of project's highest priority and profitability, and the selection is based on certain factors like resource-based, arising from opportunity to make profit, or market-based, arising from an identified demand in the home or overseas markets. The purpose is to try to make available to all people in an area minimal amount of certain basic material requirements and services. 2. Preparation. Most projects start as an elementary idea. Eventually, some simple ideas are elaborated into a form to which the title project can be formally applied. The idea becomes a specific proposal of things to be financed with individual or group of loyalties identified with it. At this stage, possible sources of finance may be considered and potential aid donors identified. Frequently, these questions are the subject of a specialized appraisal report. 3. Appraisal and selection. On the basis of this report, final decisions are made about whether to go ahead with the project or not. In practice, there can be sequence of project selection decisions. Following appraisal, some projects may be discarded. If the project involves loan finance, the lenders will almost certainly wish to carry out their own appraisal before completing negotiations with the borrower. Comments made at the appraisal stage frequently give rise to alternatives in the project plans. After negotiations, the various covenants and agreements will be contained in a loan agreement that is signed by all parties, after which the proposal exists as an agreed line of action. 4. Implementation. At this stage, funds are actually disbursed to get the project set up and running. A major priority during this stage is to ensure that the project is carried out in the way and within the period that was planned. Problems frequently occur when the economic and financial environment at implementation differs from the situation expected during appraisal. Frequently, original proposals become modified though usually only with difficulty because of the need to get agreement between the parties involved. It is during implementation that many of the real problems of projects are first identified. Because of this, the feedback effect on the discovery and design of new projects and in deficiencies in the capabilities of the project actors can be starkly revealed, so as to allow management to become aware of difficulties as they arise. Recording, monitoring, and progress reporting are important activities during the implementation stage. In 1970, BOM added the further stage, evaluation. This stage often closes the cycle as it gives rise to the identification of the new projects. 5. Evaluation. Once a project has been carried out, it is often useful but not always done to look back over what took place, to compare actual progress with the plans, and to judge whether the decision and actions taken were reasonable and useful. This we call evaluation. This kind of analysis can help only in the management of the project after the initial construction phase, but will not help in planning for future projects. Experience with one project can give rise to new ideas for extension of the project. Repetition of the need for vertically associated projects which supply inputs to or process products from these projects, and other ideas which become the seeds of new project proposals. These new ideas then begin to pass through the project procession again. The different stages which projects pass through generally declines as the cycle is pursued. Many projects never pass through the stage of identification. Preparation of some projects is abandoned before appraisal, while others are given up afterwards. A few are abandoned during implementation, but many are completed successfully. Nevertheless, the existence and use of procedures for the rejection of unsatisfactory proposals and less satisfactory alternatives are an essential feature of any effective set of procedures for handling projects from conception to completion. This is crucial for the project proposals and alternative forms for each project. Other versions of project cycle. The BOM's cycle is very simplistic, as it seeks only to reflect IBRD practice. Several other writers have developed different models of the sequence, each of which brings out different main features of its historic characteristic of the project that is fully implemented or evaluated. Such writers include 1. DPMC cycle, Development Project Management Center, first published in 1976. This puts its emphasis on distinct events during the life of a project, drawing distinction between the pre- and post-authorization periods, the investment phase and the output generation phase, and the authorization, with the detail of implementation. 2. Rondinell's cycle, 1977, is in some ways similar to BOM's suggestion. It is a continuous, successive series of activities which are more numerous than BOM's, but between which no special life milestone are distinguished. The endless cycle idea is very apparent in the figure shown below. 3. Godman and Love, 1979. This illustrates what they call the integrated project. This perception had 4 distinct phases, and the flows cover not only the project itself, moving from stage to stage, but also feedback flows and the directional movements of information and authority. Both phases are shown to be especially important in relation to policy. The 4 distinct phases identified by Godman and love include 1. Planning, appraisal, and design phase. 2. Selection, approval, and activation phase. 3. Operation, control, and handover phase. 4. Evaluation and refinement phase. 4. Epoyang's cycle, 1993. Epoyang's cycle is similar to Böhm's cycle. According to Epoyang, the stages under which a project should be analyzed will depend on the type of project considered. He formally recommended 7 stages, which include 1. The design or idea or pre-identification. 2. The identification stage. 3. The preparation stage. 4. The appraisal stage. 5. The negotiation stage. 6. The implementation and supervision stage. 7. The evaluation stage. It is useful to discuss into details the 2 stages added by Epoyang. The design or idea stage, pre-identification. This initial stage consists of evaluating the environment and the prevailing variable, for example, prices, consumer demand, income level, level of technology, and so on. This stage basically considers activities concerned with surveying, reviewing, and taking inventory of existing data and information as a prelude to, and taking inventory of existing data and information as a prelude to, and planning of the analysis that is necessary for conducting studies related to the project idea. Negotiation. This stage involves discussion with the lenders or providers of funds or assistance on the measures needed to ensure success for the project. The agreements reached at this stage are further embodied in the loan agreement. The proposed project is then presented to the policymakers or planners for approval. After the necessary approval, the loan agreement is signed and the proposed project goes into implementation. The different formulations of project sequence have much in common. Each has its own particular perspective, and each may have intrinsic value of its own. However, all bring out very clearly the ideas of a sequence of activities in which different and changing considerations will be important. This sequence and the relevance of particular topics at many stages are what have been discussed so far. This is the end of study session 4. Thank you.